Hi y'all, welcome to Mike Peace Woodturning. Sometimes you just gotta stop what you're doing and fix something, and this Raggedy Tool Storage Lazy Susan I've got is one of those. The problem is it's relying on a inexpensive, maybe a 6-inch turntable at the bottom, and apparently it's just too woogity for that. So I'm going to take this thing apart. Turns out I didn't need a Lazy Susan after all, because it will spin down here at the bottom because it's on an old chair with a pivot in the middle. So I'm going to clean it up, take the 6-inch or whatever it is Lazy Susan mechanism off, bolt it down, and when I do that I'll explain some of the features about this, give you some approximate dimensions in case you're interested in doing something similar. Well, obviously the first place to start is taking all our tools out. I'm just going to put them in a 5-gallon bucket, which seems like the easiest way to deal with it. Gosh, I probably made this first year I was turning, and then I just kept adding to it. Added an extra level. It used to have a handle here. If I can find a picture, I'll put it here. And then I just added another level for all the little bitty small Allen wrench type of tools that I've made. So let's just knock off some of the dust before I can figure out how to unfasten. This will just slip up. Okay, so it's wedged pretty tight at the bottom. Alright, I see what I gotta do. Take this thing loose. I've got 4 screws I got to take loose. Fortunately, I've got a hodgepodge of screws, and that's the way it always is. I'll take the Phillips first and then see if I can't find a flathead. Yep, mixed screws here as well. Throw those flatheads away. What a waste of time. I can see part of my problem is only like a 4-inch Lazy Susan mechanism. 4-inch wasn't nearly strong enough. Might be useful for something though. All the ball bearings are still there, but yeah, this is solid. This will work. Now I just got to figure out how to mount this thing back on here. If you get something out of this video, please hit the like button. Back to the video. I got to decide, maybe I'm just going to glue it down and put in a couple of screws to hold it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 2-inch screw at an angle, at least a couple of them, so I've got to drill a couple of holes, so let's do that. I might add another one, but I'll put one in from each side. Okay, to be able to easily center this when I turn it upside down and glue it, I'm just going to put a little finishing nail in here. There's already a hole that goes all the way through the center of the other one. So that'll just give me a centering pin. I'm going to put some Tight Bond Original in here, liberally. Because I've got a lot of this stuff and it's just probably just about past its best if used by date. That aside, now I do the bottom. Now all I got to do is match that pinhole, centering pinhole. That's good. Now I want to kind of match up these squares for orientation. And now all I need to do is put in a couple of screws, square it up again. Gonna need a longer screw than that. 2.5 inch. Turns out when I put those screws down, it pushed out some of the fibers, and because I didn't have a hole drill, it backed it up a little bit. So I'm going to wait till it dries, take those screws out, and re-drill those holes into the base below. Meanwhile, let's tell you a little bit about the size of this thing. I found this chair base on the side of the road in my neighborhood on trash pickup day. The first one I've got is 22 inches from the floor. This is 3/4 inch ply. The next one is top of that is 10 and looks like 10 3/4 inches on the over the top of this. And then I did this little smaller one with a piece of 2x4 with some pocket screws, and then with a couple of screws fastening it down. Cool. I've got various size holes. You need larger holes for some of the larger tools, smaller holes for the smaller tools. If you get a smaller tool dropping through one of these holes, it'll hit the floor. Don't ask me how I found that out. So it may pay for you to mark the bigger holes. I marked them in red. Most of the other tools are pretty much interchangeable, but I drilled 1 1/4 inch holes. Got a few 1 inch holes, and then these are probably the largest ones are 1 1/2 inch holes. As I go to the second tier, these are all 1 inch holes because I'm going to use smaller tools here. As I added tools, I drilled various size holes. Could be 5/16 of an inch, might be 3/8 of an inch for smaller types of tools, and I got a few more up here. And I just kind of drilled holes in as I needed them. Oh, let's talk about the diameter. The diameter of this middle tier is 12 inches. The small one is 6 inches. And the biggest one looks to be about 17, almost 18 inches in diameter for the biggest one. Again, all this is 3/4 inch scrap plywood I had on hand. The blocks in the middle, it's got a 2x4 section here, it's a 2x4 section up here. These are, whatever you call it, mitered corners, beveled corners, glued. Same thing on the one below. Again, plywood. Cut this on a table saw with the, at an angle. For a parting tool, I cut a slot and then put a little small piece of plywood in there, or a piece of thin piece of wood for holding parting tools. For my large skew, I drilled a large hole in the middle and then 2 small adjacent holes to accommodate it. My 1 inch and smaller, I just drilled holes. I've got different size holes. Some of them are marked in red as being very, very large holes. Near the top, I have a number of the smaller tools tend to be smaller holes. Along this rack, I have some 1 inch holes, and then as I developed the need for smaller round tools, I just drill additional holes. Okay, cleaned up, much more stable, not wobbly anymore. Well, I'm going to include a couple of pictures of a cart that a fellow club member designed. Might be a better fit for you. Fewer tools but more accessories. If you can't get access to an old office chair base, you can always make you something out of a circle 3/4 inch plywood. You can use some coasters like the ones that I bought recently for my grinder, and you could always add a 6 inch Lazy Susan. This one that I got will support 500 pounds. So if you aren't able to get a chair base where you don't need a Lazy Susan like this one, and you have to make one, yeah, add it. So I hope this was useful for you. I'll have links to the turntable and some casters that I used. Y'all remember, y'all stay safe. Come on back, you hear?